Let's talk about central idea questions. You could also call these big picture questions or main point questions. You're basically looking to answer the question, what's the main point of this passage? What's the big idea? Now here's a little bit of a cheat code. The passages you read on the SAT are going to be well written. They're not going to be putting poorly written passages on this test. Good writers tend to state their main point in one sentence, usually towards the beginning. So I like to call this the golden sentence. There's usually, not always, but usually one sentence that kind of captures the essence of the whole passage, and you want to look for it. One little note here in the answer options, and we'll see this when we do a practice question together, you want to watch out for extreme language. So words like all, every, no one, nothing, never, everything, right? Not automatically wrong, but they are red flags. So the common stems that you'll see, and I think you can pretty easily identify these, which choice best states the main idea of the text? Let's take a look at one of these together. Pause the video, read this passage, and answer the question. All right, which choice best states the main idea of the text? This is how we know we're dealing with a central idea question. And let's go back to the cheat code that I mentioned just a minute ago, which is look for that golden sentence. Can you identify which one of these sentences is the golden one, the one that captures the essence of it? Well, there aren't that many sentences. I would suggest it's the first one here. And a little more detail on this. The next sentence begins with the word for instance. And that means that it's an example of the point that we just made. We get into this a little bit more when we talk about text structure and purpose questions later on. But the fact that the second sentence starts with for instance means that it's not the main point. It's an example supporting the main point. And then everything else in this passage is focused on one specific example. So this first sentence right here really is the golden one, right? This is the main idea. In order to heighten the effect of her work, painter Susan Greenleaf Hunter physically immerses herself in the landscapes that she portrays. So let's take a look at the answer options here. Greenleaf Taylor specializes in portrayals of the desert. No, we have one example of her painting the desert, but that doesn't mean that she specializes in it, right? Art critics have come to appreciate Greenleaf Hunter's approach. Does it even mention the art critics? I don't think it does at all, right? We can't assume that. Greenleaf Hunter's work product is at least partially inspired by her lived experience. Now, I realize it does not say this directly, but let me put a little asterisk next to this and come back to it. Maybe you don't like this answer option, but we will discuss it. And then answer option D, Mojave Memories is Greenleaf Hunter's best known work. Remember what I was saying about extreme language? Best is a pretty extreme word. It means that it's better known than any other of her works. I don't know any of her other works, right? And nothing in here suggests that this is her best known works. This is just an example of one work that she did. So that one's out. Okay, now let's make a little bit more of an affirmative case for C. Greenleaf Hunter's work product is at least partially inspired by her lived experience. The first kind of technical thing I want to point out about this is the weakness of the language. So a minute ago, we were talking about strong or extreme language not being great. This is really weak language. We're saying Greenleaf Hunter's work is at least partially inspired, right? We're not making any bold claims, and that's actually a good thing. That makes this answer option more likely to be true because the door is more open, shall we say. Okay, now I realize, again, it doesn't explicitly say that she's inspired by her lived experience, but how does she get inspiration for her work? Well, she physically goes somewhere and experiences it, right? It doesn't need to be an exactly stated quote from the passage to be correct. The correct answer here is C.